Nico?
I think after the speech.
I'll tell you what, because it'll be after. I'll cue you in. Oh, that was yours. Sorry. We got two GoPros going on right now. Freak me out. Okay. Thank you guys for being here today. I'm Glenn Morgan, and I'm going to be presenting my process for my examining practices. In the process of examining my choreographic practice, I came to a question based on what I know and what I don't know. What I know is lines positioned in space, and what I don't know is how to coordinate movements from a free flow. This changed into what I know is a linear pattern in space, and what I don't know is freedom of flow. Thus, this has led me to seek the freedom of flow through a linear space. Through practice-based research, I developed a linear space of a single circle, as you can see here, and focused on the lines running out of the center of that circle. I also researched movement methods to cultivate flow within dance improvisation through the lines within the circle. Each step in this process has helped me develop further questions and possibilities to reach an understanding of what I seek to know, freedom of flow through a linear space. I began this process by observing the task of a linear space and patterns. I observed people walking in spaces that I set with pathways of cones in a line, and later through random marbles. I did this with my 5-year-old, which was fun. I also did this with the dancers here. These two concepts represented a linear pattern and a nonlinear pattern. Within each task, the participants showed a continuous pattern of movement within the cones and open patterns within the pathways through the marbles. When working with Alonzo King and White Oak, one of our tasks was to create a score within the shape of an L. This task helped me decipher the need to allow the dancers to create an improvisation based on a visual cue of a linear pattern like a straight line or an L. Through my research, I found that patterns of lines existed that could move into a fluid flow called a vector. I used a visual to create a second task, which I had the dancers conduct an improvisation based off a visual image of a linear pattern, as you can see right here. They then repeated the task by watching the change of the pattern into a fluid flow. Thank you, Nat. As you can see on the screen, you can pause, thank you. This task helped me develop my linear pattern of a circle with a single dot in the middle. The dancers would start at the center of the circle and create a free-flowing dance improvisation out towards the edge of the circle within straight lines, and then returned back to the center, like spokes of a wheel. The dancers could change the direction of the line once they had reached the center dot, but they had to have continuous flow and connections of movement while dancing down the line and back. This is the beginning of my research into freedom of flow. I used the element of video as a concept within the piece, learned from our second guest artist, Marianella Bowman, with the use of a camera from a view above the circle. This is so that you can see the pattern during the piece and the dancers moving in these lines from the center dot and back out and in, which you will see during the piece as we have our GoPro. Because my linear pattern was set, I needed to develop an understanding of how to create freedom of flow. Creating freedom of flow would become a difficult component of my research. As I look back at my research, I found in a second task, that second task of looking at the linear pattern and then looking at the fluid vector flow, that the dancers focused on the linear pattern and became fixated on the dots and the spaces between. This caused their personal freedom of flow to be limited or lost in their improvisation. I also tried within this circle, a linear pattern with the dancers going towards the center dot instead of out and away. This would prove to be unsuccessful due to the focus of maintaining this center dot. They began to fight to maintain control of that center dot, thus the freedom of flow was completely lost. As I moved forward with freedom of flow, I found a need to move backward to go forward. This brought me to look at the basis of what flow really was in movement and dance. The concept of the skinosphere, the internal space of the body, and the space in the body became themes based off the ideas of harnessing the uniqueness of each individual dancer. I looked at microchoroidics, or a focus on the individual dancer's space, as a platform for this part of my study. I wanted to transfer the way each dancer engages their internal space. I focused on the theme of internal flow within the skinosphere with the dancers and guided them through exercise to stimulate and create flow prior to conducting an improvisation within this circle. These included one ball internal from Gaga, which we got to do with Tiffany. I also focused on water balloons as an exercise that we've gained from contemporary body practices, where they're laying on the ground, imagining their body is water balloons, multiple or thousands of water balloons, and how those interact. And then I also created a spinning exercises to simulate torque or free flow, where I had the dancers twist their bodies and get a lot of torque, and then eventually let that go into a free-flowing movement without control. This led me to my in archive, which I use spinners and dreidels to look at what happens from a torque into a free-flowing movement. And I have 2 children, so I have plenty of these to find in my house. I also began to look at energy, including dynamics, qualities, and effort within these flows. Since flow could be free or bound, I began to look at these qualities in the dancer's improvisation as well. This led me to my boundaries a little later. Another assessment point that I was noticing when the dancers performed this improvisation was interruption of flow. Because the 3 dancers were limited to the space of the circle and committed to a line, the probability of contact or interruption was inevitable at some point during the improvisation. I wanted to know if the dancers would keep the task of flow and move past or through each other, or would they make the choice to be interrupted. Since my last sharing, I have come to the culmination of my set boundaries for this improvisation and continue to look at each individual dancer's effort and flow. These boundaries I have set is staying on the line from the center dot to the periphery of the circle and then returning back. Continuous free flow. They're allowed to have bound flow at the outside of the circle or on the center dot. I wanted them to start the piece with that torque to a spiral, letting go into their flow. They're allowed to do up and down movements. Outward focus and connections with the audience became an important part since they became so internal, focusing on internal flow. And the use of weighted head to show off balance. I also allowed them to interact and interrupt the flow with each other. And then I also wanted the flow to continue, even though it had an ending, to continue into another flow. So at this point, I'm going to have the dancers come out, and we're going to show you our piece. understand the flow and embody it within this linear pattern. I will look at the following assessment points to set more choreographic parameters within this improvisation. I will continue to look at how the dancer's flow can be projected to the audience. What set choices can be made to interrupt the flow? So I'd like to set those choices. And do the boundaries of the improvisation that I set for the dancers work for flow? Also, how do the dancers create transition between movements and continuous flow? And I have a display of my archive, my cradles, and any other items from my journal. If you'd like to see any questions.
Did you have the use of 3 dancers? Did that have a specific?
I really kind of decided to start with 3 to 4, just because I knew I wanted to do this linear pattern of a circle. And I just felt like if I did 4, it would be too much. So I started with 3 and I could have added 1 in, but I felt like with this space, 3 would have been enough. So yeah, I started with that number in mind.
Or perhaps like odd versus even numbers?
Yeah.
Or something?
No, that didn't really come to my mind in actuality. Just I know I wanted 3 to 4 because I wanted to do a circle, a specific circle. So, and I knew I was limited in space too, so I wanted to make sure that I could have the ability for them to maintain flow with less people and to do more.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just want to make a comment from my sightline perspective. I write dead center.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times when the dancers would be maybe standing, and so from here I couldn't see the screen. It
Sure.
forced me to watch
Right.
only them.
Good.
And then sometimes when they dropped, I forgot about them
Right.
a little. So I just wanted you to know that.
Right, and that's good because I wanted that relationship. I wanted the relationship of the pattern and the flow. I wanted them to emulate the flow with their movement and the pattern to be seen from the visual on the video.
I
So,
thought that's true for the whole sideline.
yeah, did anybody else comment on that? The visual aspect of having the video and then having him.
I was in the perfect spot to see both.
Great.
To see both. It was amazing. Both was happening, and it was just really cool. And all of a sudden, it felt like I was watching 6 dancers.
Cool.
Oh, right.
Interesting. And the qualities are different too because like I'm trying to also cue them to notice, like Jimmy really great at this, the camera. And so there's moments like you're saying where you can see different things from that perspective than you can from a perspective. That's why I really wanted that element, and Mary and Elle really helped me think about that. And Brandon obviously helped me culminate and have it. So cool. Any other questions?
I just found that my eye was more drawn to the patterns. I found the patterns really interesting, so I think it's good that you have that.
Right. I don't think you can see them if you didn't have a video. I mean, you just see people in a circle. You don't really know that they're doing straight lines out of the center of that circle without them. Anybody? Question? All right.